And then another recent development in the current project is the library and transit hub co-location. So what happened was the library has also been looking to develop a new library in Pahoa for some time. And so there was a discussion about combining the two into one site. And this supports, transit-oriented development, which includes walkable communities and being able to reach community destinations within a short walk or bike, and just supports livability in the area in general. So the overall goals of the project that we're doing right now is to support comfort and safety for transit riders, especially in the Puna district. We also want to make sure that the project supports and promotes other uses such as walking and biking, and that it provides amenities and gathering spaces for the community, including the new library. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Austin to give you a little overview of the site selection process.
And so after we went through that initial evaluation, there were 3 sites that kind of rose to the top as the most preferred. And these are site 2, 8, and 9, all fairly close to the Puna Shopping Center, and all on the west side of Pahoa Village Road. Site number 2 is already partially cleared, and there's a gravel parking lot that's kind of used as an overflow for the Puna Shopping Center. And then site number 8 on the other side is also very large parcel at 10 acres and a good shape. Site number 9 isn't as big, but it's got a good location, and there's some potential there for different access for buses versus vehicles and pedestrians. So it has potential as well to be a good site. Next slide, please. Okay, here's just a little closer image of site number 2. So you can see where that certain areas already been cleared out for parking, and it's got a nice connectivity to the Puna Shopping Center. Go to the next slide. And so this is just a very conceptual possible layout of some of the components that we've been looking at to be included in the site. And really this is for spatial orientation to make sure that the site is large enough to accommodate whatever may be put in the future, whether it's all constructed in the beginning or whether it comes in phases. And there's lots of different possibilities here. And so this is just to really give a kind of representation of what could be. What's nice about site number 2 is that as you come into Pahoa from the roundabout, this could be kind of a gateway type of feature for Pahoa, if the library is one of the first things you're able to see. Also the buses, you could quickly get the buses off the road and into the transit hub without them having to go into the more congested area fronting Puna. And so that was a benefit of that. And plus just the connectivity in general to the areas surrounding it is good from a pedestrian standpoint. And then, a couple of the cons with this one is the cons with pretty much all of these is there's a lack of raised sidewalks through this area. Those would have to be constructed. And there's the existing signal at Kahakai Boulevard and Pahoa Village Road is already a bit congested, and inserting buses into the mix could cause some problems. So we'll be doing traffic studies as part of the EA process to figure out what kind of mitigation will be needed to resolve all those. Next slide, please. And here's the site number 8, just on the Pahoa side of Puna. You can see it's a mostly undeveloped lot, very similar in size to site number 2. There is an existing structure on the site. And so site number 8, similar. These graphics, just wanted to be clear, are just to generally represent some of the different components you might see on it. As we get into the next phase, we'll actually be doing a conceptual design for each one of these sites that'll be specific as to how these different elements could be laid out and how they'd be integrated with each other as well as the road. So this is more for general size representation, and even that is subject to change as we get into more detail. With this one, it's slightly separated from Puna, so it's on the other side. So there may not be quite as much congestion as you get into this area as there was with site number 2. It still has good street frontage, so that there's an opportunity to make the library and some of the other buildings and features, very visible to the public as they drive or walk or bike by. And it's also a single parcel, which would help hopefully with the potential land acquisition. And as with the cons, very similar to what I mentioned before. And the fact that this one is a little further removed from, the Puna area, the pedestrian access isn't as favorable. So once again, the sidewalks and everything would need to be built out to help provide that connectivity. Next slide. And then finally, site number 9, as I mentioned, this is at the corner of the Transfer Station Road and Pahoa Village Road. This is multiple parcels that would need to be combined in order for us to actually have a large enough site to work with our potential uses. This also has some structures on it, so that would need to be addressed if we move forward with this one. Go to the next slide. This one has adequate parcel size, so 5 acres, and we'll talk about this in a moment, but 5 acres was generally the minimum size that we were going to need to feel like we could incorporate the elements we would like to see. And so it does meet that criteria. This one also has good street frontage. It has frontage on two different roads, similar to site number 2. This provides some separation potential for the bus access versus the pedestrian and other general vehicles that may be utilizing the site. So that's a good opportunity. And on the cons, like I said, it's a little smaller. Sidewalks would have to be extended down to this area, and then the existing structures could increase the acquisition cost of the parcel. And here is basically that same graphic that you saw overlaid on some of the sites earlier. And so this is just a very general spatial diagram, just to kind of show how these may be laid out on the site. These will be rearranged many times as we go through the process. And some of these are just ideas of what could be there. It may be that some of them, after we go through the process of going through the community and the EA process, that not all these will be included, or maybe there'll be different types of uses. But the library and the transit hub are kind of the main features that you'll see here. Number 1 being the transit hub, and that size may vary depending on what all amenities we end up in it. Number 2, there is just it's a bus loop showing the bus parking. The third item, the big yellow circle there, being the library, and then you see the multiple other smaller uses on the site. And just to give some picture examples of what some of those were. So the pavilion, this is a Ohio bandstand in Hilo that shows a gathering place there, which a lot of folks thought would be good to have something like that in Pahoa as well. A Goodwill drop-off box. There's one at Puna now. That's a possible feature. Bike parking and storage, potentially bike share, like we have in Hilo. Possibly those would be good ways to utilize the site. Next slide. And then as far as the library goes, these are some ideas that came about with the expanded physical collection of books, the reading areas, having spaces for programs for kids, and technology and digital learning is becoming much more popular and prevalent in libraries now. So having a place in Pahoa for that. And then also community meeting rooms, large enough to host events for public gatherings.